Getting the right knowledge to help score the 65 marks in ACCA's Advanced Audit and Assurance exam is crucial. If you can successfully answer exam questions, well, you're going to get the marks. And if you get sufficient marks, then you will pass the exam. So the key here is to successfully answer exam questions. Now, to successfully answer the AAA exam questions, you need to know, understand, and remember the required knowledge. It will not be possible to do the exam question successfully without the underlying knowledge. Hello again, this is Sheila from Ardent Learning Hub. And here we are in segment 3 of the Secrets to Passing ACCA's Advanced Audit and Assurance. And we'll be covering the required knowledge to get that 65 marks. So the ACCA's AAA examination requires a sound understanding of the syllabus and the examinable documents. Many students find this step, the part about studying the knowledge, very tiresome and very tedious. And so what students do is that they skip this section and they go straight to the past year questions, hoping to study the subject through the past year questions. But this is not a very good strategy because the same exam questions in the same scenario will not appear. So when you're studying the subject matter knowledge, understanding it and remembering it, you're actually getting ready for any kind of scenario that the examiner might throw at you in the exam. Remember, this is a high-level exam, so what the examining team does is that they make sure that the scenarios are not the same. The same scenarios will not get repeated. There's always a variety, and therefore if you don't have the underlying knowledge, then it's very unlikely that you're going to be able to understand and appreciate the issues within the scenario. But getting this underlying knowledge is really hard work because when you're studying the subject matter, you're first of all trying to know the subject matter, know the details, the information. Then you've got to go one step further and try and understand the subject matter. And you've got to go even one step further, and that is to remember the knowledge that you are trying to put into long-term memory. You have to make an effort to remember. Now, there are different ways of remembering them. We can use acronyms, mnemonics, and pictures to help you to do that. But that's a very, very important step. It is not enough for you just to acquire the knowledge. That means know what a particular standard says. Let's say the standard on internal audit, ISO 610. It's not enough for you just to know what it is. You need to understand what it is. You need to understand how it works. And you also need to remember certain points within the standard itself so that you can apply it to the scenario. And this requires hard work. It actually requires consistent effort on your part. And there's really no point in knowing the knowledge and understanding the knowledge if you're going to forget about it. So it's very important that you take steps to remember that. Make that as part of your learning. So you not only know the subject or know that particular auditing standard or ethical code or maybe even the accounting standard, make sure you don't just know them by rote. You also need to make sure that you understand them and you remember them, because without remembering them, it'll be impossible to apply in the exam. So in acquiring this knowledge, we've got 3 things. What are they? Knowing it, understanding it, and remembering it. The main reason why students go straight to past year question practice is because they think that it is more effective. They think if they are practicing the exam question, because they are going for the exam and they are going to see exam questions, so they think that if they go straight to the exam questions, they're going to be ready for the exam. But this is not true, because if you're just preparing based on past year question alone, then you are only preparing for the knowledge that has already been examined. You will not be preparing to encounter any kind of scenario. What if the examiner gets creative and goes on to another aspect of the ethical code that has not been examined on? Or what if the examiner goes on to another aspect of the auditing standard that has not been examined on? And that would leave you really very vulnerable. So studying the knowledge, remember, studying means knowing, understanding, and remembering. So studying the knowledge and past year question practice, they're not alternatives. You have to do them together, and they are equally important. I often get questions from students who say, which one is more important? Well, you can look at it this way. You've got a car. You want to get from point A to point B. You need a car. So you've got a car there and you're inside there. and you're getting ready to start the car, and then you find out your tank is empty, you're not going anywhere, right? So having a car is like getting that basic knowledge. And in order for your car to move, you need the gas in the car, and the gas in the car is like practicing your past year questions. So if you want to get from point A to point B, you need two things. You need the car and you need the gas in the car as well. Of course, we need you to drive the car. So knowing, understanding, and remembering the required knowledge is just the first step for passing advanced audit and assurance. So what is the knowledge that you need to pass this exam? So that would be the same thing as saying, what is the knowledge that you would need to get the 65 marks in the exam? Well, for audit, risk, ROMM, and finalization and reporting, you would definitely need your IFRS. Okay, so you need to make sure that you know them, that you understand how they work, and you need to remember them as well. And there are 35 IFRSs listed in the examinable documents for SBR. The examiner says that SBR is assumed knowledge for AAA. The financial statements are full of numbers, and the numbers are related to the accounting standards. So what are you doing? You are auditing those numbers. So in order to audit those numbers, you need to make sure that you know the recognition criteria in the standards. You need to make sure that you know the measurement rules in the standards. We're talking about the accounting standards. You also need to know how it works on the area of presentation and disclosure. So when you're talking about accounting standards, we're talking about four things. We're talking about recognition, measurement, presentation, disclosure. For short form, I use the acronym RMPD. Recognition, measurement, presentation, and disclosure. And you need that. So what this means is that the student needs to clear SBR before attempting AAA. Or at least attempt SBR alongside AAA. The accounting knowledge that you obtain in the financial reporting paper alone would be insufficient. Okay, remember the AAA paper is a high-level paper. Now, for audit procedure questions, you must know, understand, and also remember the auditing standards. Now, for audit procedure questions, you also need to know the accounting standards, but you also need to know the auditing standards. And there are a total of 35 auditing standards for the AAA paper. For the ethical threats kind of a question, you would need to know the 36 requirements of the ACCA code. And you would have covered a lot of this in your skills level under the audit and assurance paper. Knowing and understanding and remembering the standards alone is not enough. At this exam level, it will be important for you to apply the knowledge. So the examiner is looking for more than just a regurgitation of knowledge. Students must be able to show that they are able to apply relevant knowledge to the individual issues that are presented within the scenarios. Okay, so in this exam, the examiner is testing you on your ability to respond to issues, audit issues, of course. In one of the AAA examiners report, the examiner made a comment that they noticed that there were quite a lot of candidates who took the attitude of preparing for this exam by memorizing exam answers. Then what they did in the exam was just to copy paste what was inside their mind onto the new question. But the only problem down here is that the answer that they memorized was for a different scenario, and then when they come to this exam, it's a totally different scenario, so the answer would not match. So the examiner noticed that, and the examiner says this is not the way to prepare for this exam. AAA is a professional level exam, and the examining team makes sure that there is a variation in the question. No two questions will be exactly the same. All right, so memorizing the answer from one question and then applying it to another exam would be inadvisable. So let's look at preparation from another angle now. Let's consider what it means when the student scores a particular mark in the exam. So a student that scores about 30 marks and below basically shows that they've got poor subject matter knowledge. On the other hand, a student that scores between 45 and 49 actually has that knowledge. Well, they have some knowledge, but the problem down here is that they might not have the exam technique to be able to answer the question in a way that the examiner desires. So apart from having the results of your previous exam, assuming that you're resitting, how would you know whether you have the required knowledge or whether your problem is exam technique? So we can look at it this way. If you look at an exam question and you do not understand the requirements of the question and you do not understand the scenario, it simply means that you have inadequate knowledge. On the other hand, if you look at the requirement of the question and the scenario and you understand where the examiner is coming from, you understand the issues, but you have trouble writing the answer, meaning that you either write too little or you end up writing too much, then the problem might be just a lack of exam technique, and that can also be fixed. If you need more specific advice to your own personal situation on how to effectively prepare for the AAA paper, you can always email me at sheila@ardentlearninghub.com. In the next video, we will cover how the student should approach practicing past year questions for advanced audit and assurance. See you in a bit.